All right, folks, been a minute since we did a fly tying video, but we're going to do one today. This is the Kolob Kraw. It's named after a local stillwater that I won't tell you the name of, but uh, hook today is going to be FM 5130 from Fulling Mill. They're jig force long, size 10. And then the bead we've got in here, 3.3 mil. This is peach. I tie them with either the peach or the mottled olive. Out of the mottled olive at the moment because I've been tying a bunch of these, so we're doing this one in peach. Thread we're starting on here is just a UTC 70 in olive, and we're just going to work back, covering our hook shank all the way to the back of the hook here. We're going to go all the way to the bend with this and come back to about the halfway point there. Cut off our tag. Run through the rest of the materials we're using today. And use a little bit of root beer crystal flash. We'll be using these hairline crazy legs in the root beer orange color. Going to be using some squirrel zonker. Get that in where you can see it. Squirrel zonker in olive. Going to be using some Arizona semi-seal, and this is let's see. This is crawfish, yeah, crawdad color, Arizona semi-seal. Then for scudback, we're using this Hands Pearl scudback. Optional here, you can also use just your standard 1/8" vinyl scudback in a clear on this, just adding a little more flash to this one. So with our hook, or with our thread there in the middle, our first thing we're going to do is put in some a little tail here out of our dubbing, and we're just going to take that, hand stack it real quick. This is our Arizona semi-seal crawdad. Just hand stacking this a little bit, get all the fibers going in one direction as best we can to make this a little bit of a tail here. This is kind of representative of the head and mouth parts, I guess, of the crawdad. Super short little stubby tail that we're going to do here. We just want it hanging out just a little bit here, and then we're going to actually double it over. That's why we're tying it, starting it here in the middle. So we're just going to bind that down in the middle, and we're just going to kind of fold our rest of it back here, jump our thread up on there, and you can see I'm just kind of pulling this around the hook shank. No real rhyme or reason to this, just makes it look a little better as you get down here, finishing it up. Pull our excess out of there. And there we have our little tail area mouth parts. Now we're going to take our crystal flash. We're using just a single strand of root beer here. We're going to double it over though, so we're going to hang it out here a little bit. Whoops. Bring our thread forward just a little bit. Tie it in on my side, give it a couple of wraps, fold it over to the back, and then we're just going to wrap that back basically on either side of our tail. We're going to come back here and we're just going to cut this off long for right now. If this one will cooperate. There we go. Just going to cut it off long. We'll trim those to length a little bit better later. So there's our little bit of flash. Now here's one of our rubber legs that we cut off. I'm just going to cut this in half. Just fold it in half, snip it there. I'm going to use both of these. So now I've got one that's orange on one end, root beer on the other. And this is pretty straightforward. Come down here about to the hook point. And we're using this a little bit to build a little bulk for the body as well. And we're just going to fold our rubber leg over like that. Kind of even it up. So basically we get a root beer end and we get an orange end of this. And then we're just going to carefully bind it down on our side of the hook. And it's just going to pop out there, just kind of sticking out the sides. These are just kind of representative of claws, just adding a little bit extra there, movement. Now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to do it on the camera side this time. Put it over there, and then we're just going to carefully walk these up the side, keeping them on the side as best we can. Not flaring them out too much, but giving them a little bit of life there. Okay, with that done, we are, next step, flip this over. I'm going to go to our scud back material. And I'm going to just grab a piece here of our scud back. I should have cut this off prior, but we'll just cut off a piece of this here. Throw the excess out of the way for a second. This is kind of the tricky part, a little bit finagly here. We got to get this in under the hook point like that, and then we're going to bind that down carefully, working our way right to the back to our tie-in point, and right on top. We're just going to leave that hanging for now, just kind of in the way there. Next step, we're going to do a little ball of dubbing. So back to our same semi-sealed dubbing, and all we're going to do is put a little ball of dubbing right here, and this is just to help split our claws. So just dub this on. This doesn't have to be perfect, pretty, any sort of anything here. Just get a dubbing noodle on there best we can, and try not to hit you guys in the face as I do this. We're just going to build a little dubbing ball. Tighten that up a little bit. A little ball of dubbing right there at the end of our fly. Bring our thread right in front. Kind of taper that back as best we can right there. Give ourselves a nice sharp, kind of a sharp edge there. And the reason we do that is for our claws. And here you can see I've already prepared one of our pieces of squirrel zonker. So this is about roughly a 1/2-inch piece I cut off, and then right here I just peeled off of the end of the back end. You can see how my fibers are pointing back this direction. So off this, I guess, front end of this, just peeled off a few of those fibers. This is going to be our claw, and we're going to go on, or start on our side, my side here. It's going to be, again, directly on the side. We're going to tie that in, and we're going to work it back just like that to the dubbing ball, and you can see how that flares that claw out nice. Now we're going to flip it over. Sorry, it's hard to do this on your side, so I just got to flip this over and do it on my side. So get that set in there, use some light wraps, and then we're going to tighten it up a little bit as we get towards our dubbing ball. Flip that back over, flip that up so you can see we got nice flare out of our claws there. Those look really good. So just bind everything down, make sure we're all in a good spot there. And now we're going to start with our body here. Make a little dubbing loop. So down around your finger, back up. I usually make 2 wraps around the top, and then I make 1 wrap around the dubbing loop itself to close it off, and then we're going to walk that back right to our starting point. Come forward. And grab your favorite dubbing twister, whatever it might be. Hook that in there, and I just hook it on the Renzetti here. I got a screw on this side that works really well for holding dubbing loops open for me. And we're going to come back in here with another little pinch of our dubbing, about like that. And same thing, we're going to try to hand stack this a little bit. Just try to get these fibers roughly going in the same direction. And a little tip here is you pull these out of the package and you want to stack them like this. If you grab them like this and you pull the bundles out, pull a bundle out, then pull a bundle out, it'll help keep them aligned a little better, so it takes a little less hand stacking like this to keep our fibers aligned. So we got our little bundle aligned. We're going to come in here and just spread these out. We want these nice and perpendicular as best we can to the dubbing loop there. You kind of see, and then we're just going to give that a good old whirligig spin, if I can. There we go. And we'll start spinning it up. And I like to spin this up. Now you got to watch, be very careful right here. I started to grab my dubbing loop, grab the edge of my claw right there. So you want to watch that as you start spinning your dubbing loop up, that your claw doesn't get in there. And it likes to do that. I just took the tip of my scissors and just pulled it out so that it doesn't get too bound up in there. And we're going to spin this up real good. So we got ourselves a nice dubbing loop. Going to grab our Velcro on a stick, and we're just going to quickly pick that out a little bit. Whatever you use, brush, broom. See, really technical Velcro, literally stick-on Velcro on a stick is what I'm using. Get that nice and fluffed out like that. And we're going to start wrapping. And we're going to wrap this back till we get right to where we started. Okay, then we're going to kind of stroke the fibers as we wrap this forward. Really simply, just kind of pulling all of our fibers back. We want to keep from trapping down too many of those. We're going to try to go right to the edge of our tie-in here where the rest of our stuff was tied in. We got a couple wraps, tie that off, cut this dubbing loop out. Boom, gone. Now, we got kind of a mess here. Grab our Velcro on a stick again. We're just going to kind of brush this down. Get all of those pointed down. These are going to be our nice legs, sticking down there like that. And we're going to grab our scud back material, pull it forward, right over the top, bind it down, give it a couple good wraps. Then we're going to turn that, go right back over top of it, because we're going to use that again to go over the rest of the body. We just need that tied down right up to that point there. Looks good. One material I forgot to mention we're using is we are going to use a little bit of copper wire. We're using, obviously, copper colored, brassy sized, pretty straightforward. We'll tie that in now along the side of the body. This, again, doesn't have to be pretty. It's just going to be covered up with more dubbing. But we want that in there to give us a nice rib for the back half. Now, back to our dubbing. It's all the same dubbing in this. Now, what I'm going to do, make another dubbing loop here. Wrap it around. Close it off. Bind it down. Bring our thread forward. Kind of unravel our dubbing loop so that it's wrapped up right. Grab our dubbing twister again. Hang it in there. Flip this down so I can use my vise again. Now, to pull out of the package this time, instead of doing it like we did, I don't want this to be all spread out. I want this to come out in a nice kind of, I don't know, kind of a chain, I guess, as you're pulling this out of here. So I got a nice kind of long bundle this time with the fibers are all kind of matted together. So we're going to take that bundle, going to put it back in our dubbing loop that direction. All tucked in there nice. Okay. It may not look like it, but that is, I didn't pick out my fibers or stack my fibers or anything this time. We're going to spin this up, and I did that because I don't want as much fluff out of this one. And I'm not going to fluff it out at this point, just spinning it up. And now we're going to wrap again. I'm going to use my rotary just a little bit to get that set in there the first time. There we go. And I'm just letting my thread dangle on this one, doesn't matter. Just packing this dubbing in there. Nice and tight. Hate it when that happens. Just broke my thread on my dubbing twister, but able to salvage it. Got a hold of it there with my fingers. And I'm going to tie it off right there. Got lucky on that one. We were able to salvage that dubbing loop. Whew. Okay, flip her back up. And you can see this is much less bulky and scraggly as our legs are. Well, we're going to pull our scud back over the top again. Wrap it in there with a couple of turns. Only need a couple because we're going to reinforce it here. Okay, cut our excess off, and I usually go right over the transition spot with that first wrap of wire, and then I try to get 4 or 5 wraps in here, nice and evenly spaced. And as you do this, pull down, and then give it a little bit of slack. Don't use much pressure as you go up over the top, and then pull down. And as you do that, that doesn't, if you use too much pressure, it tries to roll your scud back over. So you go around and then pull down to tighten. And then we're going to come up right here behind the bead again with our wire. Give it a couple good solid wraps. Kink it. Helicopter it off. There we go. All right, now just going to come in here. And we're almost done with the tying. Pretty simple, straightforward crawfish pattern. I'm going to go in there. These days I've switched to using super glue for most of my head cement. Whatever works for you. I just put a little super glue on here. Give it a couple more wraps, and then I'm just going to throw a hand whip finish in here. You can use your whip finishing tool, but with that super glue, and I just broke it. So that's why you use super glue, because if you get a little heavy-handed, guess what? Still glued. All right, so there's our Kolob Kraw in kind of its messy state here. So we're going to just, I don't want a lot of stuff out of here. Kind of want to keep it shorter, but we're going to work a little bit of fluff out the bottom there. And then our legs are a little too long, so I'm just going to come in here and I'm just going to kind of cut at an angle a little bit as I work my way across there. Like that. It just gives us a little cleaner look. These are a little long, so we're just going to trim them up a little bit. There we go. Little haircut. Flip this over. Okay. See how everything's kind of hanging out back here. I want my crystal flash to be the longest, so I'm going to pull it out about right there. Clip it off. And we're going to kind of get it out of the way. And we're going to reach in here. It's hard for you guys to see, but I'll try to get it as best I can. I want these rubber legs to be trimmed off about even with my claws as I pull those forward. So I'm pulling those all out there, and I'm just going to snip those off. I know that's hard to see, but it's hard to do with you guys, show you guys. So let me flip this over, kind of right side up. Going to be upside down in the vise, obviously, but here's right side up. So we've got everything. We got our root bear hanging out there, giving a little flash. We got our rubber legs, giving a little extra wiggle. We got our claws hanging out there. Going to give you a 360 view of that guy. This has been a killer up there this year. Father-in-law's been fishing this one a lot, really turning the fish real well. So hope you enjoyed that one, and we'll catch you on the next one.